Hi, I'm Mark. I'm one of the pastors here at Trillium. We've been looking at Trillium bedrock beliefs over the last several weeks. This week we're looking at the belief, God's ways mysterious. You know, it's been my experience living at in the beginning of the 21st century, at the end of the 20th, that it's very easy for us to think that in a sense, science has taken away all the mystery of life. If you lived 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago, maybe even just 100 years ago, many of the natural phenomena of the planet we lived on and the experiences we have would be unexplainable. It'd be mysterious. Whether it was the sun rising in the east or whether it was, thunder and lightning or volcanoes or other kinds of phenomena, we had no explanation for how they worked. And of course, living at the beginning of the 21st century, we were able to explain so much about how the planet and the universe works. And we think that maybe there's not much left that's going to invoke mystery. Although, if you look at some of the pictures of the Hubble Space Telescope, you can't help but feel this sense of mystery in looking at all those galaxies and stars and nebula and that sort of thing. In many ways, science has opened up a whole nother realm of mystery that almost calls us out. In some sense, we've lost one kind of mystery, but there's another deeper kind of mystery that's been given to us. When I was doing hospital chaplaincy training back in the 90s, I had to do my rounds and I'd visit patients as chaplains would. And I was struck by the fact that a substantial number of patients that I would visit would have some illness or malady going on in them, but they had no diagnosis. And that surprised me because I assumed that medical science could explain everything that was wrong with you. They may not be able to give you a cure or a treatment, but they could explain what was faulty in your body. They explained the failure of some kind of mechanism at play. And yet I would say that more than half the patients I met in the hospital at any given time didn't have a diagnosis. The medical system just didn't have an explanation for what was the problem. And as I say, that caused me a real problem, surprise. And I'm convinced now that in fact our bodies are fundamentally mysterious systems. There's these deep, complex systems that work within us. And I suspect that even a couple of hundred years from now, with all the advances we make, the body is still going to be a mysterious entity for us to study. I'm fascinated by the mind-body link. To me, it's an incredible mystery. How does a thought get translated into the body? How does a belief get translated into the body? If I give you a pill, it could be a sugar pill, but I tell you it has deep medicinal properties and it will make you feel better, and you believe it, there's a good chance that you're going to actually be able to translate that belief into a physical mechanism in your body. You'll feel healing. There'll be some kind of therapeutic benefit for you. How does that happen? We have no idea how a belief gets translated into a physical experience. I find people kind of in that same light. I think I know somebody, I think I have insight into them, and all of a sudden they're doing something totally out of character. They're something very positive or maybe even sometimes negative. They're risking themselves in ways that I never thought was possible. They have talents or abilities, certain kinds of temperament that I didn't recognize before, I hadn't heard of. I find that so mysterious. I find memory mysterious. How is it that I can remember a person's name that I haven't seen for a long time? Maybe only met them once or twice. And yet the person that I'm right in front of, who I know very well, sometimes their name slips from my memory. How is it possible that I can study so hard on something and forget it, and then not study on something at all and be able to recall it? I find memory totally fascinating and fundamentally mysterious as it works in my life. How did we get here? To me, that's one of the great mysteries. How did you and I get born? Where did humanity come from? Where did life itself come from? There's something called the Anthropic principle, and I got an interesting quote from it in talking about it. It says this: "One of the more extraordinary things about the universe is that it has produced beings who can observe it, namely us. Its laws and constants are so precise that if they were even slightly modified, no human would be here to see it. Many cosmologists and philosophers have wondered if we should read anything into all this preciseness. Are the finely tuned physical laws that surround us mere coincidence? Or does it imply that we are somehow meant to be here? That's what the Anthropic principle tries to explain. Makes me think of the desiderata. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars, and you have a right to be here. I don't know what you think about this, but at Trillium, we take these fundamental mysteries and we believe that they are totally connected to the presence of a creative force in the universe. We believe there's a higher intelligence at work. They're not just random possibilities. That randomness and coincidence doesn't really explain what's happening in our personal lives, nor does it explain what's happening in the universe. There is some kind of creative, dramatic force at work in the universe. And it makes us wonder about how we might cooperate with this. At Trillium, we try to figure out how can we cooperate with this mysterious way of God that is at work in life. We have all had those serendipitous events that happen to us where we meet somebody or a door is open to us or some event happens that steers us down a different path. And even in the moment, it may not seem like a good thing, but ultimately when we look back on our lives, we realize how fundamental it was a blessing to our lives and how it totally transformed our lives. I was reading a story about this one scientist who studies this whole question. He himself was bored in class and he left with a friend. They went out to the golf course and it just happened that these two attractive women were ahead of them and they ended up playing together and he ended up making arrangements to meet one of those women later on. And it turned out that they dated, they courted, they married each other. And that whim in the moment to leave class and go to the golf links and play a round of golf totally changed his life. And we've all had those experiences. Even some of the hard places of life, when we look back on them, have turned out to be blessing places for us. Paul talks about this in one of his letters to the Corinthians, when he talks about the fact that we've come before a mystery, a fundamental mystery about how God works in life. God can take sometimes the worst circumstances and flip them on its head. God takes the cross, the crucifixion, the place of death and destruction and hatred, and God flips it up on its head and becomes a place of life, of eternal life, and of love and peace and joy. So when you're out in a boat in your life and you're seeing things coming at you, you can't always judge it in the moment about whether it's a blessing or a non-blessing for you. What we need to do instead is actually open our hearts and minds to trust the creative force at work in the universe, this higher mind, what we call God, who's guiding and shaping our lives for a blessing. And if we can cooperate with this force, we can cooperate with this power, with this mind, this instinct, this love in our lives, and something really miraculous can take effect in us. We can become even more the conduit of another way of life that goes beyond body and flesh. And I hope this for you. I hope that you'll, in a sense, embrace God's mysterious ways as a sign of goodness and blessing for your life. Not something to be afraid of, but something to be embraced. Go in peace.